Welcome back to another episode of the Power of Eight Book Club. Hello, I'm your co-host Pollyanna Blanco, along with Jennifer Smith, and we're so happy to be back here with all of you again today to discuss Chapter 9, Mystical Brains, and more. Yes, there's more today. So we're going to start off by sharing what stood out for us the most in this chapter, and then we're going to be talking about some more things. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to be inviting you to participate in the show today too. I believe there's a link below to join the conversation, whether you want to do that in the chat or you want to enter into the studio. Actually, there it is. Thank you, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. And we would love to, we really appreciate all your comments during our past shows. And we're here to, have a conversation, and the more the merrier. So I want to start off by asking you, Jennifer, what stood out for you in this chapter, Mystical Brains? Oh, and by the way, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, I'm just assuming you've been following all along. It's The Power of Eight, the book by Lynne McTaggart, and it's all about harnessing the miraculous energies of a small group to heal others, your life, and the world. So that's what we're talking about today.
I think Mystical Brains, it was a fun read. It was a good read, right? I think we can relate to this very much so in everything that they've said here. It really talked about how the brain functions whenever people are in this state of higher consciousness. And I just liked how they tied in the science part of it. I did, there's a few things I highlighted that just kind of stuck out to me. Where the author was trying to figure out what caused this state, because it was during the time that they were doing the Power of Eight. And she was like, was it maybe the visualizations they looked at? Was it maybe the music they were listening to? But it really wasn't, because some listened to it, some didn't. And it was really the intention of sending that healing energy, really focusing on that positivity in that group setting, that allowed all of them to reach this altered state of consciousness. So I enjoyed that part of it. And then there was there's mentioned in a classic book, The Mysticism by Evelyn Underhill. There's a little paragraph from that book, and I just have one item highlighted here, but she said, it is essentially a movement of the heart seeking to transcend the limitation of the individual standpoint and so surrender itself to ultimate realities. So we've talked a lot about realities. And when you get into these states, you can see that there are indeed different realities.
Oh, I love that. That's really nicely expressed. And I agree with you. It was a really interesting chapter to read, and you just summed it up so beautifully. One of the things that stood out for me too, just to add on to what you're saying, is because you've kind of given everyone a wonderful synopsis, was that it's basically this going beyond, and I've highlighted so many things here. I thought it was interesting how she talked about what actually happened in the brain with the frontal and the parietal lobe activity, and how that meant, like, when they were focusing on the intention, that it literally sort of created almost like when you block out everything else that might be sort of like a tunnel vision, if you will. Those aren't her words, those are mine. But she says, shutting down of frontal and parietal lobe activity, in particular on the right side of the brain. This brain state would make it easier to access creative imagination, says Newberg, and a sense of oneness. And the larger decrease in frontal and parietal lobe activity, the more likely the participants would experience all the stages of enlightenment. So that's, allowing the parts of our brain that get into worry and negative thinking to be kind of collapsed out, and instead having this feeling of human solidarity and a feeling of deep sense of connection, placement, and purpose. And so it's that unity consciousness that the mystical brains were getting at, which was so beautiful. And what also was interesting was how it was, there was another one here, I'm just looking for it again, where she talks about...
I would like to add on to what
go
you
ahead,
just
yeah.
said,
Mm-hmm.
because that caught my attention too. And although, you know, a lot of these things I know, it's kind of helping me weave all the different things I've learned into a way that I can explain it more to people if they want to know the sciencey approach. And you were talking about, you know, shutting down, particularly on the right side of the brain. And I go back and think about the coaching class and what that I utilize that I've learned from Bob Proctor, and it's all, you know, positive thinking. And he's always got positive thinking coming down the left side, negative thinking down the right. You always want to be on this side of the brain, not that side of the brain. So I was thinking about the right side of the brain. That's where we hold a lot of our worry and our stress and our doubts. And it like shuts that side off for a moment to bypass into a creative imagination, which is excellent, which is an excellent explanation for people. But also in many of our spiritual healing or spiritual teachings that we've learned, it's always like the left side is the new coming out, the right side is letting go. And I just thought I thought that correlated really well with the sciencey part of what's actually happening with the brain.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I found the part that I was looking for here too, like that we know that the gentle contemplative practices like mindfulness, meditation predict an improvement in one's mood, empathy, and self-awareness. But enlightenment is something else, marked by a sudden and intense shift in consciousness. So in tandem with what you were just sharing, that's one of the biggest parts that stuck out for me in the chapter, that it's a shift. It's not just about feeling more relaxed, which there's benefits to it because we can start to shift brainwave states. It's also recognizing that all of these are like a container that make possible a shift in consciousness. And when I think about everything that's going on in the world today and the new earth and the new humans, the cosmic humans that are emerging, it's this capacity to tap into our creative imagination. And because that's where we're going to find innovation, solutions. We're going to create more of what we do want. And I feel like humanity for so many centuries has been focused on destruction, right? And I remember there was a quote from a book by Barbara Hanclough, The Alchemy of the Nine Dimensions, that I had a big influence on me many years ago, and about 10 years ago. And she talks about how, in reference to the Mayan culture, and how creating is more fun than curing. So it's the idea of where is our awareness. So that goes back to the intention experience and then the small group experience with the power of 8, that and you explained it so beautifully too, like what it does to the brain and how your training helped you to see that too, the right side and the left side, because I think this really grounds it for people into, okay, so if I do this, this is what happens to this mechanism that I'm in, this jumpsuit that I'm in. And then this is what possibilities are actually opened up.
So. Yeah. Very nice.
Because I think the other thing too, I just wanted to add in really quickly, is we have been trained and conditioned to believe that the brain is logical and linear sequential. For the most part, like the brain is where we think, and thinking is equated to reason and logic. And a lot of people now are really awakening to their creative intuitive side. And so this is a beautiful applied example of the benefits of that.
Yeah, it even mentions it here on, you know, that your frontal lobe activity drops suddenly and significantly in this state, which shuts down some of the logic and reason. The logic and reason shut down. And that's very good whenever you want to step into your creative imagination, right? because I always tell people that logic sometimes holds us back to what's really possible for us because of the conditioning that we've all been through, the way, society is built. So,
Yeah. Have you ever heard that? I've heard it so many times, people saying, be realistic. And they look at exactly what's in front of them. And I feel like I live my life a lot differently than that. Like I look at what could be possible. And then I feel like the logic and reason, of course, it has its place, but it's more like a fact checker. I don't start there. Like I tend to start more with the creative imagination. Maybe it's the artist soul, it's that what's possible. And then I look at, I think we were talking about this the last show too, the chapter 8, this came up, this sounds familiar. Like you were sharing that too, about, just kind of using reality as a feedback loop as to how to like modify and realign with the truth, which leads us into the more part of our show today that we were getting into a wonderful conversation about just before the show started, and you've really inspired me on this topic, is about talking truth. And in a moment, after we share a little bit about that, we're going to open it up to anyone who's watching live or who wants to use the link above to ask a question or share an experience, to connect with us and connect with this conversation. So to just bring all of this is a wonderful book. We've really been enjoying sharing it. Our intention for this show is to really bring it into the here and now, and with all the energies that we've been going through in this particular time that we're in right now, how can talking our truth really support us at this time? What are your thoughts on that, Jennifer?
There's been so much happening just this week. Just this week, there's been wonderful experiences. And I think speaking truth, really, one, it can help other people who may be experiencing the same things and may not know exactly what it is. And I think that's one benefit, speaking truth, especially with so many upgrades that have happened. For me, it's been over from 21 to now, especially in 22, upgrade. And then just it seemed like in this compacted state within the last month, a lot of different things, And I think that's what people would be interested to hear about too.
Just sort of what we've been experiencing and noticing, right? Like one of the things I can share and speak to on that topic is that if time felt like it was speeding by quickly before, it's like in warp speed. Things are happening so quickly, and I've noticed my mind to form wants more processing time, and my body feels more tired because these are old ways of being in the world, where my ego mind wants to understand everything, wants to like catch up with everything that's happening so quickly. And my felt sense about it is that we're all receiving upgrades, downloads, things are coming up, bubbling up to the surface. I know I've been talking to clients and people about that too, where it's like all these old patterns that we thought we had already healed, maybe from childhood or other things, are coming up, floating up to the surface of our awareness. And it's like almost could feel overwhelming, might feel overwhelming, has moments where maybe it doesn't and then it does, because the whole operating system itself is that we've got a default of wanting to figure it out. And if, depending to what degree that's still operating, that is going to create some turbulence and some drag, right, on the system. And as a result, it could feel overwhelming. What have you been noticing?
Well, I would say on Sunday there was, and I don't know everything. I can't tell you why everything happens, but if you can explain it, that would be great. I'm just kind of to the point because of things that have happening was just like, okay, I'm going to experience it and know this is good, and then just kind of notice from there where I go. But on Sunday there was a major upgrade of energy there. So my experience was very much in a meditation where you feel like you're lifted, but then your heart center just opens. So I think that's in my whole body getting warm,
Yeah.
and I feel like it feels nice, but I feel like that is it's like a cleansing process, or that heart opening. And I know people always say you gotta, you know, open hearted. Well, what does that really mean to people?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just not a figure of speech. It's really open open hearted, living from your heart center as your root chakra. Once you can heal and the lower three chakras. And that's the state that we all need to be getting to.
Mm-hmm.
That's the state of where you start manifesting really quickly. And it's happening. It's happening because I'm experiencing it. And I'm experiencing even in my reality, things that are happening, different things whenever you pay attention. So it's like, it's not like gigantic shifts whenever I go out into the world, but whenever you're consciously aware of what's happening, it's like it's a it's a new up level day. I think that's the best way I can explain it.
Oh, I like that. Up level day. And you said something powerful too. And that was to really notice what's going on. I've noticed in my own journey as well that until I was more consciously aware that what was going on, my mind form would sometimes try to pin it down. And it was not in a way that fully could explain it or understand it. And so that sometimes I missed the opportunity to fully embrace it, or it created confusion. And that heart opening is something that, our hearts, we've got the human heart, the chakra heart, the higher heart, and it's almost like a triangle with a base. We've got the sort of masculine side, the feminine side, according to like what I studied in medical intuition with Shri. And so it's like sometimes it can be, it's such a beautiful figure of speech, move forward with an open heart. And yet, as we're moving through the process of opening the heart, it's like opening a drawer and seeing what's in there. You know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness, there's some beautiful things, and then there's some dusty things that I'd forgotten about. And so it's I think sometimes what happens for people is they start to open their heart, and then as you open your heart, you're also opening yourself to beautiful new possibilities, and you've got to get the other stuff out, or dissolve it, or just reframe it and have a different appreciation for the gifts in it, so that way it's the process continues to unfold and expand and emerge, and the opposite doesn't happen out of fear, and closing back down again. I love that. This quote everyone knows, I'm pretty sure now, that Pamesha Drone quote about it's there came a day where it became, I'm butchering it right now, I apologize, but that one about staying tight in the bud and opening out, that it was more painful to stay tight in a bud than it is to open out. And I think I've read it so many times that now I'm not even paraphrasing it well. So yeah, it's just it's like a birthing experience right now. And some births, like the baby just comes flying out, and other times, so I feel like it's very individual for people. And yet at the same time that it's individual, it's also paradoxically this mystical brain of when we can share our experiences and just chat about them, about what we're going through, we can, it helps us to reframe, it helps us to consider, um, you know, and touch into the fact that there's this kind of collective cosmic heart that beats through us. And to sort of just bring it down to earth for a second, one of the things that we were chatting about before the show that I feel is worth sharing here is that discernment. When we're talking truth, it's not about convincing other people. I think sometimes, I know when I was on my inner awakening journey, and it's something I don't profess to be, I'm always mindful, because the stuff is always there. It's just a question of where we place our attention and focus, right? And like we were talking about last show, the more we move up in, frequency of where we're spending most of our time, the less often it creates drag, and the more expanded and lighter our travels become. It's just when we are going through those moments of birthing, and I just lost my train of thought. My goodness. Sometimes my mind goes off in so many tangents. I don't know if you can help me out there. But yeah, there was something I just want. Oh, I know, it was about the talking truth, and about how when we are talking truth, if we're not here to convince people, then I think, yeah, that's what I was saying earlier on in my journey. When I would try to talk truth, I had a very closed throat chakra, and I misunderstood it. I thought talking truth was about, this is my truth. It had to be forceful. It had to be, or it wasn't truth, it had to be, firm. And I knew it was going to upset people and ruffle feathers. And it was going to be a kind of an unpleasant process. And where I'm at now is, and I shared that experience with you the other day, that I was navigating a miscommunication and just speaking my truth about it with someone I care for. And I took the time to connect with everything that was going on inside of me the day before, and get sorted and settled within myself, and feel the feelings, notice the thoughts, let whatever needed to come out in a sacred container that was private and just for me, to kind of sort and resettle myself, and notice what wanted to come up for healing, what was no longer serving me, to really be self-response able. And then when I initiated the conversation, the truth just came out naturally. It didn't come out from a place of anger. It didn't come out from a place of, I need to convince you. I was already clear in my truth. I was standing in my truth. And it was just more about sincerely communicating it from a pure heart. And the power, without even realizing, it was only in hindsight that I realized, oh my gosh, that's what it feels like to be in my empowered truth, divine empowered truth.
You had mentioned too that you really have to believe it and feel it from the inside.
Yeah.
And then you can speak your truth very easily. But we can also feel this. And I think that goes back when people are talking. I think that goes back to like authenticity and alignment. So if people are saying something, but they're not really believing it, I can feel that,
Yeah.
And many people can. So it's important to really understand your truth and what you believe as you speak it, because then everything will be in alignment. And the energy that you exude from that is amazing, right? So people are going to be at different levels and believe one thing and then maybe learn and believe something else. But that can all be felt by people. I had an amazing experience yesterday because I know that I believe that the universe always connects you with people that you need to meet. Like it's, they know where everyone is at the same time and you're connected somehow. I believe that because it happens all the time. So, and it's fun. It's fun to see like, what's my day going to be like? Who am I going to meet today? But I met an amazing, it was like a business function. And so there were many, many different types of businesses. And I went because I want people to know about energy healing. And so I met someone there who was very clairvoyant and, could see auras, could hear things, and I loved meeting him because there's people, working all sorts of jobs out there that have these abilities. And I just, I want people to talk about this, to talk about their truth, because I meet so many people that come to the healing room, in my healing room, that have these abilities as well. And so it would just be nice to get that all out there. One, I think it would be beneficial for people to speak their truth, to be beneficial for them, right? But it'd also be beneficial for everyone else who may be having these abilities come online now.
Yes, and I feel like the veil is thinner, and people are noticing um, the energies, whether they're empaths or highly sensitive people, or just, you know, we've been through so much collectively that it's like the collective is supporting this energy to emerge too. And this is our contribution to supporting the collective rising energies. And so our intention here for anyone who's listening now or on the replay is to create a safe container, a sacred container where you can, take that first step and say, I do receive messages, or I do receive visions, or I do get a felt sense about things. And I noticed the other day that I had an inkling about this, and I followed the breadcrumbs, and lo and behold, this is what appeared, and I want to celebrate it. And I don't know who I can talk to about it without them saying something that doesn't expand me. I won't even say it, just saying something that doesn't expand me. This is like the new coffee chat, right?
Yeah.
As I see it. I'll share one really quick anecdote, just again, keeping it down to earth, is when I say down to earth, I mean as a cosmic human being, because we all are cosmic human beings. We're just remembering that, right? Mm-hmm. This was years ago. I was at a local outdoor mall, and all of a sudden, I was getting tired. I thought I'll walk home. And it was my intuitive voice. And I've learned to discern too what that voice is like compared to, say, my ego mind. And it was very gentle. It just said, well, it might be a good idea if you stepped into the store. And of course, my rational mind was like, well, no, we need to get home. I mean, you were only going to spend the morning here. You have other things to do. And it wanted to argue with my intuition. And my intuition was just kind of this sweet little voice like, well, you could go home. However, it might not be a bad idea if, like, it didn't insist. Whereas the ego mind was like, no, stop being frivolous. It would have all these judgments, all these like, stop being childish, whatever it was saying to me, right? And so it was kind of like, back in the cartoons of the kid growing up, the angel on the side, and then, the two little polar sides of it. So, but I had learned, my mom had taught me, and I'm grateful for this from my mom. She always told me to trust my intuition, even as a child growing up. We didn't talk a lot about it, but that was a message I did receive in childhood, and a message I want to share with everyone right now too, is that discernment because sometimes we've been taught to discount that little gentle voice. And that's how I've learned it's my intuition. I'll never insist that I need to do something. But anyways, I listened to it, and it was bar none comical. Like, the universe does have a sense of humor, and
sense of humor.
Great sense of humor. And I kid you not, literally, I mean, that you couldn't have timed it more. Talk about divine timing. I literally stepped inside the shop I was standing beside, inside the front door, and all of a sudden the rain came pouring down like a water wall. It was like uncanny. And I was like, oh, come on now. The weather report said sunny all day. So the universe offered me that great lesson. And just sometimes, and I sort of compare it to high-speed internet over the old dial-up. Now I'm dating myself a little bit, but the high-speed internet is the intuition. And so when we all have these capacities innate to us. It's just giving ourselves permission to acknowledge them and celebrate them,
I have a story. I have lots of stories, but you were talking about just following your intuition. So this week, this is just a small story, but this is what happens like daily, and how easy life can be. Is there's big miracles, and there's just small ones, which are just as fun. But my son and I, we were driving into town actually to get some pool supplies, but we were driving past one of the places where he could get a sports physical. And that popped in my mind, let's do it now. And I looked at him and I was like, let's go ahead and do that now, because that was my intuition. And I could feel it. Like you can feel it. It feels like this, I don't know, it feels like this pumping action. Like, yeah, like it's time, And it's like, I think, and he's like, well, no, first. I was like, I think we should. And I listened again and he's like, okay. So we went in, and as I was driving in, I thought, I don't have the sports form, but I said, oh, I bet they probably have some here. And I walked up to the front desk and I told them why they were there. And she's like, oh, I just printed these off. And she had had just put them on her clipboard and got them from the printer. It was the sports form we needed. I thought, well, yeah, we did need to come in here and do this today. See? But it's just fun things like that I encounter all the time.
That's amazing. Yeah. Life gets it's true. Life gets a lot easier when you pay attention to these things, because they're here to guide us through our day and to light the
Small
way for us.
things, big things, right? Just whatever we need to get done here.
And it's interesting hearing you say that. I feel like the miracle in that is it increases the trust that, the divine has your back, and if you're listening, it will deliver. Even the past couple of weeks, the other place that I was house and cat sitting at down here, I had to joke about the law of instantaneous manifestation. I'm still giggling over that it'd be nice to have a cat in my life. I miss having a cat in my life. And then lo and behold, 9 of them show up. And it's kind of amusing too, the sense of humor from the universe, because cats have 9 lives and 9 is all about completion. And it's like, okay, is that enough for you? So.
Yeah. Well, we definitely are going through new times, and I get confirmation of this. I met a healer who does the QHHT healing.
I'm not familiar with that. At least I don't think I am.
I think it was a Dolores Cannon.
I'm
Developed
familiar with
it, and
Dolores
she,
Cannon. It's just, yeah.
you kind of go under hypnotized, and then you can tap into past lives and things like that. And we decided to trade services. But that program has been up leveled again from this time. So we were trying to, for me, like the new up leveled work, but the old way of doing QHHT did not work for me. Now it may work for other people, but that was not working. It was like instantaneous, like, nope, we're not doing this, is what happened to me. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So you're seeing it in all the different, healing modalities that are out there, that things are getting up leveled, and
Yes.
very much even like Reiki and energy healing. You have up levels to that with the quantum, balancing, the quantum healing, which is necessary for these times.
Definitely, because we're constantly, like, the universe is expanding through us, and we're expanding the energy. So as we expand the energy and we expand our consciousness, we lift into, right now on the planet, it is possible to live your day-to-day life in 7D consciousness, right? That's what's actually being anchored right now. And 7D is that place of moving through your day without judging yourself or others, staying in that neutral place and being open. And it takes some focus, intention, practice, and awareness to sustain it, as opposed to just having moments of it. And for a long time, people talked about 5D being in the compassionate heart. And so it's like there's a lot of consciousness awakening on this planet through humans, that 3D isn't the end all and be all. And that's going back to the reality versus the creative imagination, right? That when our multidimensional awareness starts to open up and expand, we start to realize we're so much more than just a physical body, that, we've got all these other dimensions and aspects to self, and energy centers, and ways that we can get online with the divine and receive guidance. And there are all these different facets, if you will, to that make us up in terms of who we are. And then even at a certain point beyond that, it's the mystical brain thing again, where at a certain point in the journey, that sense of self does dissolve through these practices, whether it's being on the healing table and being held in that healing space where I don't know what your sense is, but this is just what's coming through right now from the divine. I feel guided to share is that I feel like anytime I've experienced a healing or also offered a healing opportunity for someone who's been really open to it, I feel like that healing happens outside of any sense of self. What's your sense of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think that's exactly how it happens. I think people get the most healing whenever they can just kind of let go of the mind, and just relax into it. That's whenever you're going to get the most healing.
Yeah.
Just like being in a meditative state, basically allowing yourself to receive the healing.
And that's where too, as cosmic humans, as we move throughout our day-to-day life, we can bring that healing presence out into the world. We have an experience on the healing table, and there's that attunement with the divine that is, comes through the healer to the recipient. And then it creates this beautiful sacred container of entrainment and that allows that sense of self on the level of a story to begin to dissolve for a period of time. I sort of have the sense that, as we continue to expand as a humanity and we're really in this up level moment right now. Yesterday and today is a peak up level moment, and fast forward to the 8-8 portal, we're in rapid upgrade. So that I feel like what's helpful for people right now is to let go of the need to understand it all and just to simply be with it all and to hold that attunement within to whatever you're noticing, whatever you're experiencing, and to invite in practices that quiet the mind and help you to feel connected to something larger than your individual self, so that you can enter into that mystical space of feeling connected to something larger than yourself, and then see what comes through, right?
Yeah, and I would say just trust during this time. Like if someone has an experience, they're not quite sure what it is. And I'll give you an example. This happened to me, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was good. And then I did some research on it to find out what it was really all about. And it was, we're getting energy on the planet to all of us at this time, and we may remember it, we might not, but it was like seeing a light in the corner of my room. That's where it was coming from. It was like energy just pouring into me. And this was I had never heard of that before, but I could feel my body frequencies rising, and I was really present for it, and I just cleared my mind and allowed it to happen. And I don't know if anybody's experiencing that. Well, I know some people are because because they've told me in the healing room. But if there's other people out there listening and wondering what it is, it's a great thing because that increases your vibration. It helps with healing. It helps with a lot of things. So if there's any other experiences people might be having, feel free to reach out to either Pollyanna or I, and we can help that. We can help you get you some answers to some of those things.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you shared it in that way too, Jennifer, about how it was a good thing. I know when I was down here in Mexico in Cozumel, I think it was back in 2005, I had an experience where literally it stayed for maybe, I'm guessing maybe 45 minutes, which was long enough at the time, where my eyesight all of a sudden went into like liquid. Like it was like everything I was looking at, like you think about a hot summer day where the heat's coming off of the tarmac. It was even more pronounced than that, but everything was going liquidy. And I could have gone into fear, and I actively chose not to. And I attended to there was an aspect of me that, could have, and I just noticed that part of myself. And I stayed open and I stayed curious to receiving it. And it's never happened since. I think what happens for a lot of people when they are opening up and receiving some of they're sensitive, and maybe they've kind of dialed down their awareness, or maybe there's a little bit of fear there, that oftentimes people immediately rush perhaps to a medical doctor. And I'm not advocating any medical advice here. I just want to be clear on that. You ultimately need to trust your own instincts. However, when I shared that with a few people after the fact, they were like, why didn't you go see a doctor? It's a discernment, right? Had it continued, I would have. It didn't. And I've since learned in hindsight, like you just looked up, that it is an energy upgrade experience, because our physical body looks solid, but in the quantum universe, it really isn't. It's a projection. If you have that belief, if that's part of how you make sense of your experience at a certain stage of the journey, then it reframes things, right? And every stage of the journey is good and valuable and has something to offer and is perfect as it is. So, and it's part of the fun of being here, really, you get to experience it all.
That's why we all came, right?
Yeah.
During this time. So tell me, how long did your experience last? The waviness. I have experienced that one time also, but how long did yours last?
I've always wanted to ask you that. I'm guesstimating because, again, my sense of time in that moment was a little, vague. But my instinct is to say about 45 minutes. It was long enough. It was more than a few minutes. And I just was sort of like, wow, let's see what will happen. I just sort of stayed calm, and I was like, let's see what will happen. And it only happened that one time. But I know here in Cozumel, I feel a very strong connection to Spirit of Place and to the Mayan culture. And I've been to some power spots here through following my intuitive hits, that it didn't surprise me in one sense, because I really set the intention that I was open to receive energetic upgrades. So it was interesting. Yeah. And you mentioned you'd had experienced something similar to that too.
Yeah, I did. But that experience was like maybe 10 minutes. And I didn't think about it in the way you did. It sounded like yours was a little more profound than mine. And I really didn't know what was happening at that time either. That was even before the light frequency, where I kind of knew a little bit more and then was happy and just allowed it. That time I was kind of like, what is going on? What is going on here? I went down, and I was actually out shopping, and I went and I just went into the bathroom and I sat down because I'm like, what? I don't know what's happening. But then I also hear people, and this happened to me as well, is the shift in your eyesight. So it's like, when you shift levels of consciousness, and this could just be through the upgrades we're receiving, that you could maybe go outside one day and everything just looks so much brighter. Like the trees look more defined to me, and a brighter, greener color, like more beautiful. And that just all happened in just one day.
Yeah. It's like those old 1950s Technicolor movies, right? Where it's like this larger than life color. Yeah, actually, thanks for mentioning that. I'd forgotten I'd had that experience too.
And that stays like that. That stays like that. And that's what you see from then on.
Yeah.
And also in your eyesight. So if your eyesight changes, right, you might be able to get rid of your glasses. I mean, that's been happening as well.
Well, and it's interesting too, because everyone sees color slightly differently too. That's something I've been learning. So that fits perfectly with that experience, that it would make sense that, because there's even new frequencies of colors that, enter into the planet. There's certain frequencies of color that our physical eyes can't yet process or see, right? It doesn't mean they don't exist. I feel like as our consciousness expands, there'll be color frequencies that we've never known existed before that we'll be able to see, which is exciting. So
it is exciting.
And
I'm
just
really excited about the future. What else is going to happen? It's all going to be good.
I agree too. I feel like there's so much incredible untapped potential, and some of it's tapped. But when I say untapped potential, I just mean like, I feel like we're just scratching the surface, and the surface is already like, wow, that there's so much more. And it's exciting because I feel like right now, you were talking about this past month being very, having so many upgrades and things like that. And I feel like even in the experience of having those upgrades, for myself at least, I can say that some of my old patterns of behavior about how I would notice something was shifting me, and I'd be like, oh, feel a little like when earlier on in my journey, I'd be like, oh, I feel something's a little different. Oh, keep going on with what I'm doing, right? And now it's like, oh no, I need to lie down, or I need to go do whatever it is. I need to be out in the sun, or I need to just go for a walk in nature. And it's just like, it's like a whoosh, and it's like it completely shifts my trajectory for the day. And it feels a little less non-negotiable and more like this whoosh of like momentum. And it's like that, it's like a wave is how I can describe it, where either I honor that wave or I try to paddle against it. But we all know that that just is exhausting. So it's better to let the wave carry us, and even to notice the waves, and to time when we walk into the waves, how we walk into the waves, that we're paying attention to the waves of energy coming in, as opposed to the mind of form dictating whether or not the waves are even there, and and then trying to dominate the waves.
Yeah. Well, and once you understand that can happen, I'm very much like you. I'm like, there was something that happened probably about 6 months ago, and I could feel it. I immediately go lay down to receive, because now we're excited about these new upgrades instead of going, what is going on? And, resisting.
That's a good point.
So yeah, it's exciting.
It's almost like when you're a little kid and you're like standing outside on a winter day and you're trying to catch the snowflakes on your tongue.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, like this is fun. Yeah. Oh, it's such an exciting time. I've enjoyed our chat today so much. Is there anything else? Like, does it feel incomplete for you, or is there anything else?
I think I feel complete for today. This was a wonderful conversation to have along with Mystical Brains, right? So I think that's what we're going to try to do, is just kind of start with each chapter, give a quick summary of it as a starting point, and then give everybody some updates on what's happened throughout the week. And I see a big week coming ahead. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited about it. So we'll find out next week when we come back, and we'll let people know what our experiences were, if we have any. But I just have a feeling we will.
Yeah. So, some of the things just we can invite people to do is, keep a dream journal beside your bed. Take a moment to just check in with yourself throughout the day, even set a timer on your phone or something like that, just to, as a practice of noticing what's going on inside, just sort of pattern interrupting. And if I love the example you shared, if you feel energy coming on, to notice what thoughts are coming up. Are you excited? And what emotions are coming up? Are you excited, or is there something else there? And it's all good. And just to consider the possibility that this is an opportunity to be embraced, and that you have a safe space next week to come and, share a safe, non-judgmental place where we're open to it all. And we know that you are a beautiful creative soul, and you matter, and your energy is so important right now. How you use it, how you embrace it, how you show up for it is really a beautiful contribution to the new earth right now.
How you relax and receive it.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
Mhm. Yeah, very good. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Next week, we'll be back at 4:00. We started a little late today. My apologies. And we'll be on chapter 10, Hugging Strangers. So that's what we're reading. And we'll talk a little bit about From the Power of Faith. And then we'll give you some updates of whatever happens over the week. All right. Thanks a lot, Pollyanna.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for